Namaste and welcome to React Bits. This is the new version of Flutter Firebase Auth setup. So why I made this new update? It's because Flutter Firebase ecosystem has got a huge update and there are quite a few changes that we need to take into account while setting up Firebase authentication in our application. So let us get started. First of all, for any project that you want to integrate Firebase, you need to create a Firebase project in Google Firebase console and add the Google services.json file to your Android app and Google service-info.plist file in your iOS. However, we are not going to do that in this episode because that is already covered in the previous version of this tutorial. You can check that out. The link is provided in the description below or it's available in the pop-up icon in the video. So let us get started. After adding the Google services.json file in your project, what we need to do is we need to set up the plugins. So what plugins do we need to set up? pop.dev Firebase core. The new requirement is that we need to add Firebase core dependency in every project that uses other Flutter Fire plugins. And next, Firebase Auth. And finally, we'll also cover Google sign-in. For authentication, sign-in methods have to be enabled in the Google Firebase console. So if you have not done that or if you do not know how to do that, please check out the previous version of this tutorial. So let us add these dependencies in our project. So Firebase core in popspec.yaml under dependencies, let's add Firebase core and this is at version 0.5.0. Okay, and next Firebase auth 0.18.0 plus 1 and finally Google sign in as well in 4.5.3. So after adding these, we need to do Flutter pop get, which should be done automatically by VS Code or Android Studio. If it does not, you can use this download button or from terminal you can run Flutter pop get. And once you add these dependencies, you need to rebuild the project as these consists of the native dependency. So let us rebuild the project. Okay, one more thing before I start this, because of the new update, what we need to do in our main function is we need to initialize Firebase app before we build the app. So let us initialize the Firebase app, convert to block body, and let us convert to async function. So this we don't need future void here, and this is async function. First we need to ensure initialize. So wizards flutter binding dot ensure initialized, we need to call this, and then await Firebase, we need to import Firebase core dot initialize app. So this is the one of the newest updates. So we need to call this in every project that uses Firebase related plugins, whether it is Firebase Auth or Firestore, Firebase storage or remote config or anything, any Firebase related service if you are using, you need to add Firebase core as the dependency and you need to call firebase.initialize in the main function. So now let us build it as we are ready to move further. Now by this time our app is running and we have successfully integrated Firebase in our application. So this is a must. If you want to implement Firebase authentication, you need to integrate the Firebase properly in our project. Previous version of this video, if you do not know how to add Firebase project, how to configure your Android and iOS project for Firebase implementation, please check out my other Flutter Firebase videos. Here I am using a simple demo application with a login page, and there is a home page which has just a logout button. So if you can use this as your starting code, or you can use any new Flutter project to start. So let me switch back to login page. Now we need to create authentication service. So let us create in leave folder, let's create new folder utils, and inside this let us create authhelper.dart. Here we'll create class authhelper. Let us create a sign in method. So first let's import Firebase Auth. Let us create sign in method. First so Firebase Auth instance, and then we'll create a sign in with email method, and here we need email password. So we need a email and password. Then what we can do is, now we can call final equals auth dot sign in with email and password. Email is email, password is password. Let's await this and let's make this async function. So if we check in the new version, sign in with email and password returns user credential instead of auth result or instead of Firebase user. And to get the user, we need to call res.user. So this is user credential, and in the newest version of Firebase Auth, the user is no longer Firebase user. The user model is user, not Firebase user. So if in your project you already have another user model, what you can do is, instead of importing it like this, you can import this as fauth, so that you can call this fauth.user. However, we will not do that here. If you are doing it in a new project, so your user model should be called something else, so that we do not have a problem between this user and our own user model. We can return user, and let's handle the error. Let's not even handle the error here, so that we can handle it in our UI. So in UI, let us check the login screen. So in login screen with login with email and password, what we can do is, if email and password is not empty, we can use, let's try here authhelper dot sign in with email. Email is email controller dot text, password is password controller dot text. We will await this user. If user is not equal to null, then So if we have exception, we'll just print exception. Okay, so with this function we should be able to log in with email and password. Now what we need to do in main.dart in main screen is that we can use a stream builder to check whether the user is already logged in or not and display either home page or login page. So let us wrap this with stream builder. Okay, and stream builder will give us, let's check, Firebase Auth dot instance dot auth state changes. So on auth state changed getter has been renamed to auth state changes function, and on auth state changed is deprecated. So we use auth state changes, and this returns stream user. Okay, and finally here if dot has data and then data is not equal to null, then user is successfully logged in, we will return home page, otherwise we will return login page. So right now it is displaying login page, and if we enter user credential, okay, so right now there is no user with this record. How we can create a user is we can go to our Firebase console. So let me go to Firebase console, and in our project, inside our project, when we go to authentication in users, we can create a new user. Let me create a new user, test1 at testme.com. Just keep the password as test. Okay, now I have added new user. Now I can try to log in with this same email and password because I have just added it, and this should successfully log me in and display the home page. So let's tap login. See, now we are at the home page. Now let us create a logout button. There is no changes in the newer version. For logout we can simply do call the sign out, and in home page home.dart, when we press the logout button we just use auth helper.logout, and if it is successful we are again taken back to the login page. See, okay, now we will implement the Google sign-in. So in order to implement Google sign-in, let us first, in our auth helper, let us import Google sign-in. Okay, and let us create a function sign-in with Google. We do not need to pass anything, so let's make this async. First new instance of Google sign-in, then we call sign-in, await, we await and call sign-in. So Google sign-in will return us Google sign-in account. However, in order to sign in with Google in Firebase, we need the credential. So to get the credential from this Google sign-in account, what we can do is, this is account, we can get the authentication. authentication. So when we call account.authentication, we get back the authentication information, which consists of the access token and ID token, using which we can create our credential. So in order to create a credential to log into Firebase, we call Google Auth provider. So there is a method called Google Auth provider dot credential. So previously it was dot get credential. Now it is renamed to credential, and get credential is deprecated. So credential, and here we pass in access token. Access token is auth dot access token. ID token is auth dot ID token. So now we have a credential. We can log into Firebase with our credential. So here await underscore auth dot sign in with credential, and we pass in the Google credential that was just created. And if it is successful, we get in user. If it is failed, we get an exception. So let us use this method in our login UI. So in login UI, where we have login with Google, in this button we will use try catch, and here we will call helper dot sign in with Google, and this should do all the tricks. So if there is exception, let us just print E. What we do normally is, when we have exception, we show the user the error message regarding what happened during the authentication. So let's tap login with Google. It should give us the account, list of account to choose for. So it is not giving me the list of account to choose for, because I previously tried it and it was, my account was already logged in. So let me show you my console. When I was adding new user, you must have already seen that my user account was already there. So let me just remove this, delete this account, and tap log out, and let's hot restart, and let's try login with Google. Again, it's going in without showing me the account choice. For that, what we can do is, in sign out, we can also sign out from Google sign in. So here Google sign in dot sign out. So we can call sign out both, so that after pressing log out, we should see the choice of user account. Once we choose the user account, we should be successfully logged in. Okay, so there are certain changes in this version of Firebase. Firstly, we need to add the Firebase core dependency in any project that uses Firebase. So if any of your project right now is using Firebase, and if you want to upgrade it, you need to add the Firebase core, and right now it is at 0.5.0 version. And Firebase Auth for Google sign-in, we need to add Google sign-in. And in the main function, we need to await for the Firebase to initialize. So without initialize, without this, our app will occur into error. So without this, not adding this will cause an error in your application. Next, the onAuth state changed getter has been changed to auth state changes, and all these changes have been made in order to align it with the other platforms Firebase libraries. So it is now in alignment with Firebase Auth JS library and other libraries existing in the market for Firebase, so that there is no confusion or there is no learning curve when you switch between platform or when you work on multiple different frameworks. Also, next few changes that has happened is, first, there is no longer Firebase user. Firebase user is deprecated and new user model is created for Firebase user, and sign-in method will return user credential instead of auth result or previously user. Okay, it will always return user credential. And for Google Auth, Google sign-in, the get credential has been renamed to credential and get credential is deprecated. So this is how you can set up Firebase authentication in your projects after the upgrade in the Firebase ecosystem using the latest Flutter Fire plugins. Thank you everyone for watching this tutorial. If you do like my videos, like, share and subscribe so that I can keep making more of these videos.